Greetings, folks, and welcome to the Electromaker podcast. This is the audio version of your midweek roundup of all things Maker and Embedded and Lovely. As always, this is the audio version of a video show. The audio is taken from a YouTube show that I record every week for Electromaker on the Electromaker YouTube channel. And as such, occasionally it might seem a little bit odd because I'm talking about things I'm referring to on the screen. However, when it's really difficult to understand what I'm referring to, I will come back in and give you audio context so you can kind of visualize it yourself. That's usually very rarely necessary, however. And this week's a really interesting show. There's a bunch of different things talked about, a wide range of things. There's some really interesting projects from the Electromaker website itself, but also a new bit of hardware, which is very much just coming to industry now. I'm not sure when sort of hobby people will be playing with them, but these are event-based sensors. Essentially, a camera that will only report back pixels when those pixels change, rather than sending back the entire image, which of course is not great for video recording, but is fantastic for computer vision projects, because if they're only reporting back on the pixels that have changed, then there's a lot less information for it to process, and it can use less power and less processing power as well. So that's just one of the things we talk about this week, but I should probably hand over to Ian in the show. But just a very quick thing before we get into it. I've been getting so many nice messages about the podcast version of this show. I'm really glad to hear that so many of you have this as part of your sort of weekly thing, whether it's going to work or when you're out for a run or whatever. Do keep them coming. As I've said many times before, I understand if you're not someone who's into it, but the Discord server is a place where we could set up a podcast-only section where we just talk about the podcast and little ways I could improve it. Although, as always, ian@electromaker.io is my email address. Feel free to reach out to me there as well. Anyway, let's get on with this week's show. Our first project this week comes from the YouTube channel of Valima, and this is someone who I was dimly aware of before because of his Odra deck build. The Odra deck from the video game Death Stranding, a kind of thing over the shoulder, rather than the creature from the Franz Kafka novel. But this build is especially cool to me because it's from the film Minority Report, which is a sci-fi film I was going to initially say only came out a few years ago, but it actually came out 20 years ago. But it came out at the perfect time for me, because I was at the time a teenager, very enthusiastic about science fiction, and it had one of the coolest weapon designs in it, which was a sort of pulse rifle shotgun thing, which you reloaded by spinning it round the wrist, similar to the way Arnold Schwarzenegger would reload his shotgun in Terminator 2. Now, I'm not particularly a gun person, it's not my thing, but science fiction absolutely is, and a recreation of a Minority Report gun that is also a kitchen timer? Yeah, sign me up. So, here are all the parts laid out, and as you can see, there's a lot of 3D printing going on here, but what I think is so inventive about all of this is the way that it is designed to work mechanically. Because everything here fits together using his 3D printed parts and bearings, and really the inclusion of the timer is kind of not an afterthought. This is exactly the reason it exists. But what is really special here is the engineering side of it, because making a kitchen timer using an Arduino and a little LCD screen is a fantastic beginner electronics project. But there's nothing beginner about this project at all. It is fantastic. The electronics on the inside are actually relatively simple. There's an Arduino Pro Micro, there's an LCD screen, and there is a little switch for capturing every full rotation of the gun barrel. And if you don't know exactly what that means, he does demonstrate this in the video in a moment, which we'll come on to. And as you can see here is the basic operation check. You can go up to turn the time up, and then when you press another button, the time counts down, and it is a kitchen timer. So, if you've been mystified as to what I meant up until this point, this is how the weapon from the show looks. Again, I want to make it clear, I'm not really a weapons person, but sci-fi weapons I can kind of get behind. And so you turn it round, and in the film, that's how you reload the gun. In this is how you add 1 minute to the timer. So you can spin for 5 minutes, press the trigger, and it will start counting down. It's just a massively over-engineered kitchen timer. I absolutely love this. So this really appealed to me for nostalgic reasons, but it's also just a fantastic build. As I said, I love over-engineering simple things. It's such a wonderful idea. And I'll leave a link to this video in the description. Now, briefly, we're going to return to the NXP Cup. If you're not familiar, the NXP Cup is a self-driving robot competition between university students run by NXP. And along the side of the NXP Cup this year, we have an Electromaker Video Cup, which is for people in the NXP Cup documenting their progress on YouTube. And we're going to just dip back in and see what's been posted. Now, there's a couple of videos from Team Convex Optimization, and this is on the YouTube channel of Eduardo Lira, including a high-level design overview, and this is really worth watching because it gives you a really, as it says, high-level view of what this team is doing in order to get their robot up and running. One of the things I think is super interesting about this is the way that they're using simulations. So this starts off talking about the hardware they're going to use. They're going to be using the Google Coral Dev Board, which is a fantastic board because it has the tensor unit built in. It has machine learning on board. It's a fantastic starting point. But he also goes through to talk about just their diagram as to how it all works. They're doing it all within the Linux system using shared Linux processors. In fact, some of the things that he talks about in this video are right on the extent of my limited knowledge about actually using shared processors on Linux systems, because I never really had to do it. I just have a Linux laptop and it doesn't share any processors with anything except itself. But this is a fantastic high-level overview of everything they're doing. And the eagle-eyed among you, if you do look at this and look at their simulation, might notice that they're using the Godot engine, which is something we've talked about before. If you are interested in finding out more about that simulator, there's another video on Eduardo's YouTube channel from Team Convex Optimization talking about the simulator they've made in the Godot game engine. And Godot is really powerful. It's a completely open source game engine. It's not quite as feature rich as like Unity or Unreal, but that doesn't matter. They're making it work, and that's the main key here. If you are wondering how I'm finding these videos, by the way, I'm just searching for hashtag NXP Cup in the YouTube title description, and I'm filtering it by upload date. And everyone who's doing the NXP Cup knows to hashtag their work, so these are the only people who are documenting their work right now. I imagine things will hot up a little bit as different teams start getting their robots to come together. I'm really excited to see what all the different teams are doing. If you are taking part in the NXP Cup and you're seeing this video and haven't posted anything yet, get to it. It doesn't matter how far along you are with it. It doesn't matter if it's just you with your smartphone pointing at a bundle of wires with a single board computer somewhere in the middle of it. I'd really like to see what you're getting up to. Jumping over to the project section of the Electromaker website right now, and this is a project from Alex Miller. Now, Alex has been uploading a whole bunch of super interesting stuff about TinyML lately, and this is no different. This is TinyML for big hearts on an 8-bit microcontroller. And as the name may suggest, this is running machine learning on an Arduino Uno, which is a sentence that I never thought I'd say a very short time ago. I stand corrected, this is an Arduino Mega 2560, it is still an 8-bit microcontroller. And now, this is a fantastic read, and of course, as always, I don't have the time to go through every single aspect of this, but I absolutely suggest you go and give this a read through, because the concept behind this is fascinating, and the execution of it is interesting too. Now, this is using Newton, which is a new, well, I don't know how new it is, but it's an AI platform that I wasn't so familiar with. It's the Newton TinyML platform. I imagine it certainly looks like it works in a similar way to Edge Impulse, but I have no hands-on experience with it. But essentially what this does is it takes a bunch of data from heart rate measurements, and it creates a model using that and then deploys that model onto the Arduino Mega. So here's where it gets interesting. Once the model is trained using Newton, it gets deployed onto the microcontroller, and as he says just here, he did not have a real cardiograph, so he streamed data from the computer to emulate it. To do this, I developed a simple protocol that consisted of a header, a data section, and a checksum. And then with this data, it allowed the Arduino Uno to predict or detect whether there is an arrhythmia or not, using the model trained. I think this is a really fantastic idea. It's like theory crafting the future of modern medicine, because if we get trustable models running on very low power and cheap microcontrollers, that's going to make like medical sensing a very different game. And I love the fact that there are people, even at the hobby level, I'm assuming this is a hobby level, doing this. And so, yeah, this project really caught my eye. It's one of several he's put on the Electromaker website recently saying this kind of stuff. TinyML for big hearts, real-time food quality prediction, air writing recognition with a Nicholas sends me. Oh, I haven't even looked at this one yet. Wow, that looks very cool. I will leave a link to the first project in the description of the video, however, and of course you can find all of those other projects by clicking on his name. And now would be as good a time as any to remind you all that every single month we give away prizes for the top 3 projects on the Electromaker project panel. It's something that happens slightly separately to me. There's a panel of judges who judge this kind of stuff, which is perfect because it means I just get to speak with enthusiasm about these projects without having to worry about judging which one is the best. I just get to love them all. But if you are working on anything, whether whether it works or not. Document it on the Electromaker website, because this is a documentation platform. It doesn't matter if you're teaching us something, if you're showing us a finished product, or if you're showing us something that is not quite working yet, but you're documenting the process of trying to get it going. We want to hear it all. The entire point of having a community section is that we're all working on things in different ways and different times. And yeah, I am very guilty of not putting any of my own stuff up there, so I understand if you are a little reticent to. But there's it's very easy to do so. Electromaker accounts are free, and you can put your project up and potentially win a whole load of Nordic semiconductor development gear for your efforts. Moving over to the Electro-Japanese pool build. Now, this is a miniature version of the old school version of... Moving over to the Electro-Japanese pool build. Now, this is a mini version of the old school game of Billiards. I haven't seen a table with like old school billiards on for a very, very long time. But as a child, I used to actually play because one of the local sort of child-friendly pubs to us had a billiards table in the back. And while adult things were happening in the front, fuck off, Ian. Moving on to Electro-Japanese pool, and this has got nothing to do with pools. It is a billiards table, a miniature billiards table. Now, this build is in French, but with the power of Google Translate, we can see exactly what this is, although the image should be clear enough. If you've ever played an old school game of billiards, you will know what this is. So if I scroll down, you will see the table here has a number of different holes which give you a different amount of points. Now, on the older games that I played, they were full size, and you played like it was a pool table, and you were trying to get a certain amount of points. This is a super simple idea. I love the way that this has been implemented, because the balls in this game are all made of metal. So these little 3D printed discs just have pieces of wire on each side, and when a ball falls into one of these holes, it makes a contact, and this goes back to the Arduino, and that says, okay, this hole has been filled, give the relevant amount of points to the relevant player. As you can see here, there's some custom PCBs that have been created for this as well, which is just a very neat way of doing it, and the board itself that's being used is an Arduino. So here is an in-progress video of it being built, and you can tell it's in progress because it has the classic cardboard box as case going for the screen right here. But essentially this shows the full thing in action. You can choose between 1 or 2, 3 or 4 players, and then you flick the balls up into the holes, and then you can either go through the players to assign points to different players, or those points all get assigned to your player character. So yeah, this project manages to have both an inventive mechanic and also just, as you can see, just truly beautiful aesthetics. I'll leave a link to this one in the description, although of course you will need to use a translator if you want to read it as it is in French, unless you are French. If you are enjoying the Electromaker podcast, consider going to your podcast provider and giving it a good rating. On Apple, that is especially important, as it works with the algorithm that Apple has for its podcast, in very much the same way that likes on YouTube make YouTube videos show up. We don't have a Patreon. We don't ask for donations. We don't even run adverts on our YouTube videos. But if you would like to support us, the Electromaker store is by far the best way to do so. If you're thinking of buying something for your next project, check out what we have there. We're not immune to the same problems with supply as everyone else, of course. But we do have quite a surprising amount of stuff still in stock. And yes, every penny that goes through the Electromaker store goes towards this show. So yeah, that's it for the middle adverty bit of the podcast this week. Let's get back to the fun stuff. We are moving on to the part of the show called Funding Website Things now, which is named that way because we look at things on funding websites. But we're beginning on crowd supply with Bean Counter, a very simple but incredibly useful thing for anyone that works with a lot of SMD components. Bean Counter, a simple battery-powered pocket-sized open-source parts counter for 8mm cut tape and partial reels. If you work with SMD soldering at all, it doesn't matter if you hardly ever do it. Even small bits of tape are overwhelming with the amount of components that are on them, and counting them and making sure that you know what everything is and where. This is a tool which will help with that. I don't deal with SMD all that often, to be honest. I'm very much a hobby guy. Surface mount on proto board is most of my projects. However, if you work with them at all, this is going to be something that you'll be interested to see. So by means of a demonstration video, this is a small thing that you can pull tape through, and it uses the photo transistor with LED setup, not dissimilar to the tape punch card reader from last week's show, although this is obviously for a very specific task. They call them photo interrupters because I'm assuming that whenever the holes in the SMD tape go through, it sends an interrupt to the onboard microcontroller, tallying up your count. As it says here, it works with any opaque 8mm wide carrier tape up to 2mm in height, which covers most 08, 05 or smaller LEDs and passives, as well as SOT23 transistors. Now, again, Because I don't work so often with SMD components, I don't know if that covers a large range of SMD components or a small range. That's something that you'll have to let me know in the comments below if this is something that you think you would find useful. However, there's a lot of information already on this page, but we're going to skip it for now for the main reason that this is a pre-launch project. So I'll rather come back to this when it goes live, when we know how much it's going to cost, and when we can go into a bit more detail about it then. But in principle, I love this idea. It's a very simple but useful idea for people who work on the regular with SMD componentry. We're moving over to Kickstarter now with USB to TTL. This is the complete plug and play interface solution. Now, most people who have been playing with microcontrollers for a while at some point will have run into a situation where they needed to have used a USB to TTL adapter. This is something that takes a message out of your USB port and then presents it to the UART port in a way that it can understand. What makes this one sort of interesting is just how broad it is, how it can be used in several different ways. You can get USB to TTL adapters for insanely cheap. So when I first saw this, I thought, well, okay, this is a really lovely idea, but honestly, who's going to get this? Because when you can get USB to TTL adapters so cheap, what would be the point in getting something a little bit fancier that does it a little bit better, unless you really, really needed it? But yeah, there's something about this Kickstarter that's kind of incredible. So before we go on to what that amazing thing is, there's two versions of this. There's the one with the CP2102 and there's one with the CH340 as well, which are both USB to serial chips. But what they have in common is USB-C, micro USB connections, power jumpers, and of course all the cables you need, all the pins you need to connect to a separate microcontroller. So without any further ado, let's go on to the thing that I find sort of amazing about this. For just a few dollars online, you can get a USB to serial converter. So why would you bother getting something like this? Well, because this thing costs just a few dollars. It's £3 for the version, which is the CH340 version, and £5 for the CP2102 version. That's incredible. To sell it that cheap means that you are actually competing with the super cheap version you can get on AliExpress or whatever. Not directly penny for penny, I'm sure, but still, it's kind of amazing. Given that these are something that people use a lot of the time, it's just nice to see that someone's still trying to improve on such fundamental things as USB to UART conversion. So I'm going to leave it there. If you're interested in knowing more, head to the Kickstarter page. You'll see there's a few examples of it in use just here. And by the way, if you remember, we covered a project called Stacky Pi a little while ago, which is a Raspberry Pi Zero form factor RP2040 board. This is the same creator. In fact, if you scroll down far enough on this page, I think it goes through all of the other things that, here we are. Look, this shows these things, but it also shows the Stacky Pi and a few other things that they have successfully kickstarted in the past and are now selling. So I will leave a link to this in the description of the video. Just as I say, the thing about this that just really blew me away is the fact that they're selling it so very cheap. It is time for the mystery box competition. How does it work, you may ask? Well, this is a box of mystery items, and I try not to look inside it because I like it to be a bit of a mystery for me as well. Sent to us by, of course, the wonderful people at Mauser Electronics, and I put my hand in the box, and I pull a box out of the box, and that will be our prize for this week. On semiconductor. Oh, we gave away something amazing by On a little while ago. Oh, is this another one of the Sense boards? Okay, I think this is another one of the amazing little Sense disc boards that we gave away a while ago. I'm going to look inside. This is... Yeah, look at that. Okay, I think this might be already open, so... One moment. You might think it is slightly overkill, but static bag, so static wrist thingy. These are absolutely amazing. We gave one of these away a few weeks ago. These are absolutely tiny little development boards from On Semiconductor. So this is a tiny circular Bluetooth 5 certified development board from On Semiconductor. It can be run on a coin cell battery, as you can see just here. And it has an ambient light sensor, a 3-axis accelerometer, a 3-axis gyroscope. It has a low power 3-axis digital geomagnetic sensor on it. I'm off the camera now. You can tell I'm trying to multitask. It has a high accuracy gas, pressure, humidity and temperature sensor, an ultra low noise digital microphone, a programmable RGB LED, and a 64 kilobyte NFC EEPROM, as well as 3 programmable push buttons. And this is where I am reading this from. This is the RL10 Sense page on the On Semiconductor page. This is another one of those development boards, by the way, that comes with some out-of-the-box functionality. You can get this thing up and running and use an app, the RSL10 Sense and Control mobile app for cloud cloud connectivity, which is on Google Play and iOS. And I'm discovering I'm really bad at speaking while also trying to keep something in shot over here. Anyway, we definitely have given one of these things away before. The RSL10 system in package is a lovely little Bluetooth 5 chip, and I can't remember who won the last one, but anyway, that's besides the point. It is time to find out who is winning this lovely little ON Semiconductor evaluation kit in this week's Mystery Box prize. In case you're new to the Mystery Box competition, the way we choose a winner is it's just a random comment from the last week's show. So the last show that we had, every single comment on that show was entered into a spreadsheet, and we have a random number generator, and that random number generator chooses the name of one of the people who commented, and that person was KJW, whose comment actually told me something I had no idea about. I'm a little bit out of touch with the forefront of 3D printing right now, in that I've got a couple of printers and I have no real time or need to get any new ones. I haven't been keeping up with it. But it says here that all three Ender 3 printers make no loud sounds anymore, as they come with the new 32-bit boards with silent drivers. And those boards are only £15 from Banggood UK. So that's not a bad start for getting your printers to be a bit silent. This is talking about, by the way, Matt from Not Enough Tech's efforts to get his 3D printer super silent, we talked about in last week's show. So congratulations, KJW. We'll be in touch with you as to how we can get this lovely little board from ON Semiconductor out to you, and the Mystery Box prize will continue for as long as there are things in the Mystery Box, but we do have a fun little competition coming up quite soon. In fact, we're giving away several of the same thing, and it's something we've featured on the show before. I'll keep it as cryptic as that for now. We're going to finish out this week's show by looking at a few interesting things I saw on the internet this week, starting with a new vision sensor called MetaVision. So when we say vision sensor, we basically mean camera. If you've ever messed around with OpenCV on a Raspberry Pi with a webcam or with a Raspberry Pi camera, that camera is a vision sensor, and it is sending that sensor data to the Raspberry Pi for processing, and OpenCV is doing that processing in that particular instance. And this is, of course, being used absolutely everywhere now. Computer vision is in a very special and some would say scary place where we can do an incredible amount of recognition on lesser and lesser hardware. But of course, the hardware is also getting incredibly powerful as well. Anyway, that's a discussion for another day. This is specifically about the event-based vision sensor known as MetaVision. And it is, an event-based vision sensor. But what does that mean exactly? Well, in short, right now, this camera is sending a bunch of information to my computer where it's being recorded. Although the important information from an event standpoint is just me, just the things that are moving. The pixels in the background aren't changing, at least not all that much. There'll be a little bit of light change. So a normal sensor sends all of the information all the time back to the computer to be computed, to be processed. Whereas an event-based sensor will only send information from pixels that notice a change. So if I was just standing very still and doing this, the only stuff that would be sending back to the computer would be my lips moving and my fingers moving, and the rest of the sensor wouldn't report back to the computer, which saves on processing power, which means you can save on battery power. It's just exactly the way that this entire industry is going, doing more with less. Now, the article goes into a little bit more, talking about exactly how the traditional methods work and why this is different, and explains it better than I do. And I'm sure some of you that work in the industry that heard my description are just face-palming horrifically right now at how badly I explained it. However, I find this fascinating, and I do wonder, as with all things like this, how long it'll be before event-based sensors are in a position where we can start messing with them. How long before we have a super low-powered thing which just senses, I don't know, movement in front of your door, in the same way that you get those Ring doorbells now that give you video. And what if you just wanted to spool your own thing up that was a little bit cleverer than a dumb motion sensor, but not quite as power hungry as a full camera system on your door? I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking about what us hobbyists might use it for. The article is super interesting on all about circuits, and I will, of course, leave a link to it in the description of the video. If you didn't already love Framework, the modular laptop company, I'm pretty sure you're going to start loving them now. I've been a big fan of the way Framework do things for a while. In fact, the next laptop I get will probably be a Framework modular laptop. I'm happy to take the power hit for that modularity and for the fact that they really genuinely seem to care about what they are doing. And this is a sign, if anything, that that is the truth. So the entire point of Framework laptops is that they are upgradable. It's trying to not follow the same path as most of the laptop makers right now, which is basically the laptop you get is the laptop you have. We're in a situation now where really high-level laptops have soldered on RAM and soldered on hard drives and just things that are very, very difficult to replace. And there is a reason for that. I mean, you do that because it allows you to have much smaller form factors, and it allows you to really control exactly how much power everything uses. I do get it from a mechanical perspective, but it's also just a very steezy way of making a lot of money, especially in the case of certain laptop creators, which will charge you way more than the cost of a new laptop for getting it repaired at their official outlets because they want to sell new laptops. Anyway, my ranting aside, Framework have now put out 2D mechanical drawings of their mainboard and 3D printable cases that allow you to take the old mainboard out of your laptop but still use it, which is just a wonderful idea. But what would you use an old mainboard from a laptop for? Well, Framework actually wants to know, and they're going to give away a bunch of old mainboards for that exact reason. So the idea here, it's less that you would buy a mainboard just to make an enclosure like this out of. The idea is for people that own Framework laptops, you buy a new mainboard somewhere down the line in a few years and you have this old one, and they've had all of this development time to work out what you're going to do with it. I'll link this Hackaday article in the description, but there's a link out here to a Google Docs form from Framework, which is the mainboard reuse developer program. So I'll just read this out and you can make of it what you will. I think it's amazing. To accelerate the ecosystem of projects using Framework laptop mainboards, we're giving away 100 i5 1135G7 mainboards for free to creators and developers. We've seeded a few community members with mainboards already, but we want to open this up to you too. If you're from this list of countries, you can put your idea for a project into here. We'll let you know if you were selected by the end of April 2022. What a wonderful idea. Not only are they opening up the everything you need to know about their mainboards, they're saying, give us ideas. Because the idea is that when it does come to that point down the line where Framework owners are updating their laptops, they will have a bunch of project ideas they can use the old one for. In these times of massive shortages, what a fantastic idea. So I'll certainly be doing this, but I'll leave a link to the Hackaday article in the description. And by the way, if you don't know what Framework is, the introduction by Jenny List to Framework is absolutely fantastic. I remember reading this at the time, I've written about Framework as well. This is a fantastic article. If you want to know more about it, head over here. And I will leave a link to this article in the description. Finally, this week, I want to point you in the direction of a blog on the Seed Studios website. And this blog essentially is just promoting their new S210X series of LoRaWAN gear. But I love the fact that this is actually just quite an informal blog post in a way, because they've clearly just got this equipment together and they've gone out to test it in a bunch of different places. And as you can see, they've tested it over different distances, and you can see those different distances. You can see the way that they've tested it. And there's something quite refreshing and nice just about seeing a blog post from what is essentially a storefront kind of saying, hey, look, we took it out and we tested it and here's our results. It's really nice. I like reading this kind of stuff. I like it when I see community projects that are testing out how things can work. And this feels like a nice kind of cross between the two. This makes me way more likely to want to buy LoRaWAN gear from Seed than just a standard advert would. So if you are interested in finding out a little bit more about it, do have a look here. And as various people point out in the comments, whenever we talk about long-range stuff, do make sure that the stuff that they're using here is legal to use where you are. There are different rules in different places. But yes, this is just a fun blog post I thought I would point you in the direction of to close out this week's show. So that's been the Electromaker podcast for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you're enjoying the range of stuff that we're getting on the show lately. I've been trying to really branch out and make sure that we get a lot of different interesting things, because obviously it can get very easy to just keep talking about exactly the same kind of project all the time. And while there is a great beauty in repetition and a great comfort in it too, it's nice to branch out at times as well. If there is any kind of content that you would like to see on the show that you think is missing, please do reach out to me and let me know. And similarly, if you're sick of hearing about me talk about certain things and you just, would like a break from it, do let me know that as well. I'm open to any and all feedback about the show, because essentially at this stage, really, it's just me putting this show together based on what I find interesting and what I think people might find interesting as well. But with a little feedback, of course, that's something that can be tweaked. Anyway, for now, I hope you have a fun, safe, and creative week, and I will chat to you next time.